that, giveaways to the oil companies. Let's cut that. No, oh, we can't cut the tax subsidies to the oil companies. Come on, guys, let's get real here. Let's invest in America, the American people, and put people back to work. We need a real program, and you people have offered us nothing.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Gingrey, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I stand here today not just as a congressman, but as a physician with nearly 30 years of experience treating and interacting with patients. Wearing both of these hats has allowed me to understand our health care system at each end of the spectrum, and it allows me to say with absolute certitude that the Democrats and President Obama have written the wrong prescription for Medicare. With 47 million Americans relying on our Medicare system and millions more to enter soon, it's absolutely irresponsible not to inform the public accurately of the facts about its current path if left unchanged. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, when the President's health care bill was signed into law, it ended Medicare as we know it. According to the nonpartisan Medicare actuary, Medicare will run out of money in 2024. That's, 13 years from now. The Congressional Budget Office says it will be as soon as 2020, 9 years from now. House Republicans have chosen to face the facts and responsibly proposed a comprehensive plan for Medicare. The Republican budget saves Medicare by maintaining benefits as they are for those 55 years and older, while also strengthening it by bringing true choice and competition to maintain and save Medicare for our children and for our grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, the Democrats' plan for Medicare reform is included in the 2,400 pages of, you guessed it, Obamacare, which is bad for American seniors and bad for the country. Their plan empowers a panel of unelected bureaucrats to ration senior health care. This panel will focus its cuts on the chronically ill and the disabled, these Medicare recipients who need care the most because they use the most health care services. Health care rationing has never, Mr. Speaker, has never been the American way, but it certainly appears to be the Democrats' way. As a doctor, I know that the last thing patients need are bureaucrats who are unanswerable to the public, indeed even to the Congress, making health choices for them. The Democrats' plan also allows for a $500 billion raid of Medicare to fund programs in Obamacare, a fact that they have conveniently ignored while they are consistently criticizing Republicans for so-called cutting care. The plan put forth by President Obama and the Democrats is a plan that cuts Medicare for seniors today, and it leaves Medicare bankrupt for our future generations, our children and our grandchildren. Mr. Speaker, my diagnosis is that American seniors should be worried only if we sit back and do nothing about Medicare or accept the Democrats' plan to gut it from sick and disabled seniors. We cannot allow it to continue on its current path to insolvency as the Democrats and President Obama would have it. We need to support Medicare reform now so that we will have Medicare tomorrow, and that includes eliminating this rationing board as soon as possible. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Chu, for 5 minutes.
I rise today in strong opposition to the Secure Communities program. I am for the stated goals of the Secure Communities program. Anyone who is undocumented in this country and who has been convicted of a serious violent offense should be removed from this country, period. But I can't support the program because of the significant evidence that Secure Communities is failing to achieve this goal. When you look at the numbers, nearly half of the undocumented individuals from my home county of Los Angeles who have been taken into custody through this program have not committed or been convicted of a serious violent offense, and that is the problem. Take the story of Isara Garcia, a 20-year-old who suffered 3 turbulent years of abuse and beatings at the hand of her boyfriend. In February, she finally found the courage to call 911 for help. Earlier that day, her boyfriend Ricardo had thrown Isara and their one-year-old daughter out of their apartment. When she came back to the house to get her things, Ricardo showed up, and it began again. He started throwing things at her, and when she tried to protect herself and her child, she accidentally scratched his neck. After the 911 call, the police showed up and put her boyfriend in cuffs. But after they saw the scratches, they took them off of him and put them on Isara. Shocked at what was happening, she fainted. At the hospital, doctors found bruises covering her body from the weeks and years of abuse. Despite being identified by a doctor as a victim of domestic violence, she had been arrested as the abuser. After the arrest, Isara landed in the LA County Jail, which was participating in the Secure Communities program. But because of this program, she was fingerprinted and found to be here in an undocumented way. It was too late. Before she knew it, she was sent to an immigration detention center in Santa Ana. It's stories like Isara that is causing DHS Inspector General to investigate the Secure Communities program. Washington State, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. refused to join Secure Communities. And New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts are suspending their participation in this program, and California is discussing this as well. But that's only a first step. The concerns about Secure Communities must be properly and permanently addressed. This is first and foremost about public safety. The people on the front lines of this program, our police officers, have expressed serious concerns about its implementation. LAPD Chief Beck has noted that the program is causing a breach of trust between the LAPD and our immigrant communities, hindering our officers' duty to protect and serve all of our residents. And the numerous reports of domestic violence victims being detained through this program are simply unacceptable. If a program is causing a victim of violence to fear reaching out for help, then that program is causing more harm than good. Secure Communities has undermined our police department's mission of protecting the public. It has weakened protections against racial profiling, and it will have a chilling effect on immigrants' willingness to report crimes or provide useful information to the police. We must take a long, hard look at the negative effects of Secure Communities. We must allow states to opt out of the program. We must protect the safety and welfare of all our residents and truly ensure that we will have safer, more secure communities.
Gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday afternoon, Bloomberg News released an analysis, district by district around America, of the highest concentration of 45 to 54-year-olds. And the reason why they did this analysis was to see and focus on where the impact of the Republican Medicare plan would land the hardest. In fact, the top 10 districts which they identified, the headline of this article, which obviously is Bloomberg News, a nonpartisan news service, is Medicare cuts would hit Republican lawmakers. 9 out of the top 10 districts in America with that highest 45 to 54 concentration are Republican districts. The 10th is the 2nd Congressional District, which I have the honor of representing in eastern Connecticut. Now, some may say, well, why was Bloomberg looking at the population of 45 to 54-year-olds? Well, the Ryan Medicare plan radically alters the Medicare program starting in 2022 for people who today are 54 years old or younger. Starting with that age group, Medicare will no longer be a guaranteed benefit, but instead will be a voucher plan, where Americans will be given an $8,000 payment and told, good luck, go out and buy insurance. The Congressional Budget Office has already analyzed what that means to someone age 54 today in terms of out-of-pocket costs. In fact, it would double the out-of-pocket costs for 54 and below in year one who enroll in the Medicare program. And over time, we have an analysis which shows what the true out-of-pocket costs would be for a 55-year-old with normal American life expectancy. It would raise their out-of-pocket costs. These are additional costs by $182,000. So for anybody who's out there today who's in that age group, you better start saving up, because you're going to need a lot more retirement assets to just keep level with what an American turned 65 today gets under the Medicare program. Now, we've heard a lot, and just again, one of the speakers a few minutes before was just making the comments about Medicare going broke and that people 65 and up are going to be protected in terms of their Medicare. Wrong. The Ryan Republican plan would immediately cancel new benefits for seniors today that they've started to enjoy starting in January: annual checkups, cancer screening, smoking cessation. I had a town hall back in Norwich, Connecticut a couple days ago where I had a young primary care doctor who was talking about the fact that the new annual checkup has allowed her that extra time to spend with patients, and she's detected 3 cancers because of the fact that she now has the tools to do her job smartly and efficiently. And the Ryan Republican plan would cancel that annual checkup coverage, which the Affordable Care Act kicked in January, along with cancer screenings and along with smoking cessation. All smart, preventative, wellness-oriented care, which will save the Medicare program money. But again, for people 55 and less, and again, this chart shows how the out-of-pocket cost grows exponentially. So I see some young folks up in the audience there. If you're 15 years old, your out-of-pocket costs are going to be $711,000 higher than a 65-year-old today entering the Medicare program. What this really amounts to, the Ryan plan, is just simply a cost shift to patients and families. It does nothing to make a more efficient health care system, and that is not a solution for the problem. Now, we also heard, well, Medicare is going broke. It's going to be bankrupt in 2024. If you read the trustees' report, you will see that, in fact, that is a totally misleading comment. What the trustees reported was that there are sufficient funds in the program to cover 90% of the cost of Medicare starting in 2024 for at least another decade and a half. Now, that shortfall is a problem. We should not have a 10% shortfall starting in 2024, but that is a manageable problem. We can make smart, intelligent changes to the Medicare program, just like we have done going back to 1965 when it was first enacted. Again, we have had, in fact, solvency reports and warnings from the trustees that were much more dire in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s than the report that we saw 3 weeks ago. There is no reason to scare people and panic people into butchering the Medicare's guaranteed benefit in the name of fiscal solvency for the Medicare program. We can make smart choices. We can make smart changes. But shifting costs to people 55 and less, that's not a solution to Medicare's program. It ends Medicare. Now, within families, some who are over 55 and some who are under 55, this will create a 2-tiered coverage. I can report to you the Courtney family. I'm 58 years old, so purportedly I would get the old-fashioned benefit under the Ryan plan. But my wife, Audrey, who's a nurse practitioner, she's 51. She gets the loser benefit, so she's going to have to start dishing out close to $200,000 in additional costs for her retirement under this plan. So you've got 2-tiered coverage even within families under the proposal that we have with the Ryan plan. We can do better as a great nation to guarantee coverage that is a reasonable package, that is smart and efficient to solve Medicare's program. We don't need the Ryan plan, which will shift costs to patients and families in an unfair fashion. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time. To our members, the members should not refer to those in the gallery. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Mrs. Spear, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I rise today to once again draw our attention to the epidemic of rape and sexual assault in the military. But first, I want to mention the disturbing Government Accounting Office report released last week, which showed that patients and staff have been raped and sexually assaulted in the VA. 284 reports of sexual assault occurred between January 2007 and July 2010. 67 were classified as rape, 185 as inappropriate touching, 13 as forced oral sex, 8 as forceful medical examinations, and 11 others. While this is not as widespread as rape and sexual assault in the military, it is yet another example where government has lacked in protecting the men and women who serve our nation in uniform. One assault is one too many. VA facilities should be the place for aid and comfort, not for abuse. The House Veterans Affairs Committee has held a hearing on this issue just Monday. Congress must make it a priority and hold the VA accountable and ensure that this does not happen again. As I said during my last speech on this issue, I've set up an email account so survivors of rape and sexual assault in the military can tell their stories. The address is stopmilitaryrape@mail.house.gov. Today I want to share the story of Private Jessica Kenyon. Mr. Speaker, I must warn my colleagues that some of the language is raw. Private Kenyon served the Army from August 2005 until August of 2006. Her allegation is as follows. During training at Fort Eustis, Private Kenyon's teaching sergeant began to harass her. He constantly touched her and made sexual jokes and comments to her. She did not believe it would be effective to report the teaching sergeant because her unit commander was openly misogynist. He was known to say that, quote, "This unit never had any problems until females came into it," unquote. In December 2005, while Private Kenyon was home for the holidays, she was raped by a member of the Army National Guard. At that point, she reported both the sexual harassment by the drill instructor and the rape to an Army sexual assault response coordinator. The Army official advised her to put the rape, quote, "on the back burner," unquote, and focus on the sexual harassment. Private Kenyon then discussed the rape with command, who advised that it would be used against her in promotional reviews if she chose to pursue prosecution. After she reported the harassment and rape, she was ostracized and retaliated against by her fellow soldiers. This retaliation followed her to her next assignment at Camp Humphreys in Korea. When she arrived, the sergeant advised that he had received calls warning him about her. He then made a unit-wide announcement cautioning everyone that they, quote, "should be careful who you talk to because they might report you," unquote. The sergeant and others engaged in ongoing sexual harassment of Private Kenyon. In the spring of 2006, one soldier, a specialist and squad leader, sexually assaulted Private Kenyon. He put his hand under her skirt and under her shirt and on her breast and tried to make her touch his penis. She fought him off. Private Kenyon reported the assault to command. The assailant denied the sexual assault and failed a lie detector test as a result. He then recanted his testimony and admitted to the harassment. He was charged with lying on a sworn statement and given only a non-judicial punishment. He was demoted 2 ranks but remained on active duty. The assailant got to keep his job. Private Kenyon got post-traumatic stress disorder. For 16 years, the Congress has been talking about this issue, and there have been 18 hearings and reports, and yet the Department of Defense still testifies that there are 19,000 rapes that occur in the military every year, and we have done nothing about it. I urge survivors to tell their stories by writing to Stop Military Rape at mail.house.gov. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The recent release of the May unemployment rate at 9.1% was a harsh reminder that a jobless recovery is not a recovery at all. I believe that in order for our economy to grow and small businesses to create jobs, the first step must be to restore fiscal order to the federal government. This year, our government is borrowing 42 cents of every dollar that it spends. In addition to burdening our children and grandchildren with an enormous debt, such reckless spending crowds out private investment and competes with small business for access to capital. While reducing our deficit spending is an important first step to economic recovery, we can and we must do more. Since taking office, President Obama has dramatically increased the regulatory burden on small businesses. In 2010 alone, the administration has handed down 43 major new regulations, the highest single-year increase on record. The President has also used the regulatory process to block development of vast domestic energy sources. This has led to costly burdens that prevent small business growth as well as higher prices at the pump. While regulations can help protect our environment, they should be based on common sense and not stifle growth. Recently, I helped a small manufacturer cut through months of costly federal red tape that delayed expansion and hiring at his facility in Warminster Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We must work to make sure that unnecessary and duplicative regulations do not stand in the way of job creation in our region and across our great nation. Finally, we must proactively encourage private sector job creation. I've been working, Mr. Chairman, on 2 pieces of legislation in this area. The Hire Just One Act would provide a one-time tax credit to small businesses that hire full-time permanent employees this year. I've also introduced the Fairness to Veterans Act, which would extend federal contracting preferences to veteran-owned small businesses. This bill is designed to honor the service of our nation's men and women in uniform, as well as address the staggering 21% unemployment rate among veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm committed to working to fix our economy and making sure that the federal government is a partner in job creation, not an obstacle to it. Together, we can grow our economy and create private sector jobs and opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until noon today.
So, as you heard, the House is in recess. They'll return at noon for legislative business with further work on amendment debate for agriculture appropriations. Votes are expected